Tapping into computer games as a portal for harnessing the brain processing power of humans is something that we should explore further in many disciplines, especially in healthcare. Hi everyone, it's great to be here. I'm going to talk about hacking the human in a different way, namely how to hack into the brain of gamers and get them to help me with my science. So I'm an associate professor at the Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm, and currently I'm a visiting professor at Stanford in California. But before I get into the actual work with the gaming, I would like to tell you a little bit about the science that we do. So you've heard already Ed and Martina talk, and they actually mentioned proteins quite many times, and this is something that is interesting to me. And if we go back in time to 2001, then Bill Clinton announced that we've reached a milestone for humanity. We've decoded the book of life. We had sequenced the genome of humans. So by then we knew that we have 20,000 genes, and every gene codes for one protein. But why do we need so many proteins? Why do we need 20,000 proteins? And what do proteins do? If you Google proteins, this is what you get. Yes, it's very good to eat proteins. You need to do that, and it's good if you want to build muscles, but that's not all proteins do. Proteins are more or less the doers of everything, the molecules that enable life. Our genes encode for proteins, but proteins perform every single function in the human body. Everything that Martina mentioned relates to a protein, for example. And protein malfunction is the most common cause of human disease, all disciplines. And most drugs on the market also act by targeting proteins. So given that we know that we have 20,000 genes, it would be good to know what the corresponding proteins do. And even though it's 17 years ago, the human genome was sequenced, we actually still don't know what these proteins do. We haven't even proved that they exist, all of them. So my work is aiming at understanding what all of these proteins do. And there's, of course, many different ways you can do it. One, I'm looking at the location of the proteins, because it gives you good clues about their function. So human bodies are compartmentalized. We have a heart with a specialized function. We have a liver with a specialized function. And the smallest entity of our bodies is the cell. And in the cells, we have compartments, like the nucleus or the mitochondria and so on. So if we can tell where in the cell a protein is, it gives us very good clues about what that protein might do and which disease it might be involved in. So we're trying to systematically map where our proteins are. And there's, of course, many different ways of doing this. I'm not going to bore you with too much science, but this is what it looks like at a regular day in the office, more or less, in the lab. So what we're doing is that we're probing every protein one at a time with a fluorophore, kind of like Ed talked about, so we can highlight it, visualize it. And then we use microscopy to look with high magnification in the cells and see where these proteins are. So we generate a lot of images, and that's what this talk is about, how we can analyze these images. I will show you some examples. This is a greatly magnified human cell. The blue here is the DNA, cell nucleus. We can visualize different parts. This is the cytoskeleton. It's a railroad that transports things in the cell. This is the endoplasmic reticulum, the machinery that produces proteins. So if we can stay in a cell, look at the pattern, recognize the pattern, it gives us clues about the function of the protein. So that's what we're doing, a pattern recognition game, so to say. This protein is on the surface of this cell, and it's involved in interaction with the neighboring cells, and so on. If an image looks like this is an unknown protein. I can recognize this pattern. I can say this is mitochondria. So this protein is involved in energy production, most likely, because that's what the mitochondria do. So for example, if your mitochondria is not working properly, you might have heart failure, because the heart is highly dependent on energy. If it looks like this, I can tell that this is the Golgi apparatus. It's the sorting station that sorts proteins to different parts of the cell. For example, it will disaggregate in patients with Alzheimer in their brain cells. So it's very important to understand how this organelle remains its structure, and so on. So we have been generating images like this very systematically for a long time, almost 15 years. So we have millions of images of different proteins that shows different patterns like this. And we're trying to, so it's like a big puzzle, trying to assemble them and understand what is the architecture of the human cell and how can we use this to develop better drugs. But as you can understand, it's a lot of images to look at. If I would classify the patterns in all of these images, it would be a lot of work for me. So we've been trying to think of other ways to do this. I should also say that all of this data is actually part of a pretty unique Swedish project. It's called the Human Protein Atlas Project. It's a very large research program, I think the largest in Sweden. And we make this freely available database with these images and data that is being used by hundreds of thousands of researchers all over the world every month. So it's something that we're very proud of. So at a point a couple of years back, we realized that maybe we should just reclassify the patterns in all images again. It would actually give this database much better value. Well, that would be a lot of work. How can we do that? What about citizen science? We started thinking of that. That's when you ask the general public of help with your science. And there's been some great projects done. And some of these projects even created small computer games where people could help out with their science. But then we thought, there's so many computer games already, and if we would make money, it probably wouldn't be very good. So what if we instead could tap into an existing computer game with our scientific question? Maybe that would be a better approach. So we teamed up with the producers of EVE Online. Do we have any players here? A few hands, I can see a few hands. So it's CCP Games in Reykjavik, and then it's also a small startup, MMOS, in Switzerland that aims to facilitate such collaborations. And we decided to embark on a mission to create an integrated citizen science project in the universe of EVE Online in a seamlessly in the gaming environment. Might not be completely possible, but we decided to call this little mission Project Discovery. And we're telling the players that wherever you are in EVE Online, you're one click away from Project Discovery, a unique minigame that's quick, easy, and rewarding to play. So, in order for you to understand a little bit how I did this, I'm going to show you a movie that was broadcasted in March 2016 when this game was launched. But this little news broadcast was broadcasted in the in-game news channel. I would like audio for this video, please.
Systems have been removed, clearing the path for Capsuleers committed to pushing back the Drifter menace. The conflict has certainly taken its toll on the Amar military, and talks of the withdrawal being a reaction to Sisters of Eve, and Capsuleer actions only adds insult to injury for the Amar. Meanwhile, Sisters of Eve has launched a crowdsourced analysis of collected Drifter data, entitled Project Discovery, and rallied under the banner of Citizen Science Begins With You. They hope to unlock the new Drifter tech so that they may be made public and shared with all. This is Lena Amber, reporting for The Scope.
So what I want you to understand from that movie is how the game designers tried to integrate the scientific question with the game narrative, and I'll explain it a little bit to you. So this is a Capsuleer mission, and there are these creatures called the Drifters. They're very unknown, they're mysterious, they're very powerful, and they have a lot of secret tech and, artificial things on them. So now they're invading this universe, and of course that's scary. So in order to counteract this invasion, a more friendly association has been collected, pieces of Drifter DNA, images of Drifter DNA, and is launching a crowdsourced effort in-game. And the players are being told that you can, by playing this game, you can earn money in-game, and you can also contribute to the collective work of mapping the Drifter DNA so that you can unlock their secrets and clone their tech. And this mission in-game is led by Professor Lundberg in-game. Yeah, she's nice. So the game itself is actually, the narrative we try to integrate it, the game itself can be opened from anywhere within EVE Online, so it's not as integrated, it's a minigame. The players get to see